After an almost 6-year hiatus, the Victoria's Secret fashion show has returned to our screens. I, for one, was so excited to see what this new era of the Victoria's Secret fashion show would bring. And unfortunately, I, along with many others, was left incredibly disappointed and wondering if we really need a Victoria's Secret fashion show anymore. So the Victoria's Secret fashion show began back in 1995 and it was first televised in 2001. However, the show was cancelled in 2019 after their 2018 show received the lowest ratings of all time. And why was this? Well, the foreshadowing of Victoria's Secret's major sales decline and overall lack of interest in the Victoria's Secret fashion show actually began in 2013/2014, as this was the time that the bralette became popular. Everyone everywhere was selling and wearing bralettes, but Victoria's Secret flat out refused to follow this trend, insisting that they not only knew what was best, but they knew what was sexy, and what they considered sexy was a full padded underwire bra, so they refused to have bralette. Now mind you, inside of Victoria's Secret there are several departments that are dedicated to trend forecasting. So basically it's their job to predict what is trending, and these people who worked for Victoria's Secret could see that the bralette was sticking around. It was not a passing trend, it was not a phase, and little do they know that the pandemic would enforce that even more, with a lot of people, myself included, since opting to pretty much go braless. And these trend forecasters were urging Victoria's Secret to change. They were saying we need a bralette, but the higher ups said no. They said that Victoria's Secret made trends, they didn't follow them. That Victoria's Secret decided what was sexy, not anyone else. And honestly, the higher ups were just arrogant. You can kind of see why though, because at this point in time, 2013-2014, Victoria's Secret hadn't even peaked yet, which they did in 2016, when they had over 1,000 stores across the USA and more internationally. So you can kind of see why they had the mindset of we're making money, why should we change? But this was a bad mindset to have, because around the same time, the early 2010s, we were seeing a shift in the fashion world as the consumer was wanting more inclusivity and diversity. Consumers wanted to see brands be more inclusive and represent the actual world that we live in. And the brands that followed this, such as Savage X Fenty, had major success. However, Victoria's Secret once again turned a blind eye to this shift and continued business as usual. And it was when the Harvey Weinstein and Me Too movement happened that consumers could no longer deny Victoria's Secret's lack of change. And sales first started to decrease, and it was at this moment that Victoria's Secret's chief of marketing at the time, Ed Reject, made horrible and incredibly damaging comments. That was honestly like the nail in the coffin for Victoria's Secret and the Victoria's Secret fashion show. As in 2018, when Ed was asked if Victoria's Secret would ever consider having transgender or plus size models, he answered, "If you're asking if we've considered putting a transgender model in the show or looking at putting a plus size model in the show, we have." He then says a word that I don't know if it's okay to say or not, so I'm just like not gonna say it because it's an outdated way to refer to someone who is transgender. So he uses that word and says, shouldn't I have, I'm gonna say, transgender women in the show? No, I don't think we should. Why not? Because the show is a fantasy. It's only one of a kind in the world, and any other fashion brand in the world would take it in a minute, including our competitors carping at us. They carpet us because we are the leader. And since this was 2018 and not 1918, of course, everyone was really upset with these comments. Victoria's Secret and Ed Reject himself received a lot of backlash, well deserved, with many demanding that Victoria's Secret leave their damaging, non-inclusive, misogynistic past behind. And what were Ed's thoughts about this? He dismissed it as just social media hate. In an interview with Vogue, he said, "I've been off Instagram for a few months now. I just can't handle all the people telling me what an idiot I am this time of year. Social media is incredibly toxic. I can't stand people like this." He was more than happy to dish it out to make transgender women and plus size women feel like so uncomfortable, be nasty to them. But when people are like, hey, that's not okay, he's like, oh, social media is a nasty place. There's also a difference between constructive criticism and hate. Like, you know what I mean? There's a difference between being called out for doing the wrong thing and receiving hate on social media. And this was definitely being called out for doing the wrong thing, constructive criticism, and not social media hate. But Victoria's Secret still kept Ed on, even after all of this. And then it got worse as multiple models came forward as a part of the Me Too movement, saying that Ed had been inappropriate with models for years, saying that he had tried to kiss certain models, he'd sent inappropriate emails, and models that turned him down would then not be cast in the upcoming Victoria's Secret fashion show. Victoria's Secret could no longer turn a blind eye to their internal issues and lack of change, as in 2018, the Victoria's Secret fashion show had an all-time low viewership, and their sales were dropping by as much as 75%. So they finally made the decision to part ways with Ed and cancel the fashion show in 2019, which was most definitely the correct choice to make. Ed just sounds like a slimy, disgusting human being, and I hope he has an awful day. But fast forward to 2024, and the Victoria's Secret has returned after an almost 6-year hiatus this week. When I heard this, I was firstly really excited. Like, I grew up watching the show. I'm obviously a girly girl, so I love all of the pink, the glitz, the glam. But part of me did wonder, does the Victoria's Secret fashion show really have a place in our current landscape? But the show promised to be a lot more inclusive and was advertised as reflecting who we are today, which according to Forbes, likely refers to the brand's attempt at inclusivity in both body and gender diversity. Essentially, if they wanted this fashion show to do well at all, they could no longer turn a blind eye to the issues that they had in the past. They needed to be inclusive, they needed to have diverse models, as this is what we, the consumer, just demand to see nowadays. And did they do this in the 2024 fashion show? Yes. They included plus size models such as Ashley Graham and Paloma Ellisa. However, I did notice that these women were more covered up than the other models, which I found very interesting. If you're trying to portray that like we're inclusive, we're diverse, wouldn't you just put the plus size models in similar outfits? I don't know, maybe I'm reaching, but I did think it was a little bit odd. And as a gay girlie, I was of course thrilled to see that Victoria's Secret included 2 transgender models this year. I always love to see the LGBTQ+ community represented, and these models were Alice Consani and Valentina Sampaio. However, despite essentially just like ticking these diversity boxes, it was at a bare minimum. And I don't think it was an all lost on any of us that were watching the show that Victoria's Secret was only doing this because their sales are at an all-time low. If they had it their way, they would not have had diversity and inclusivity in their show. It did not come across as authentic at all because the brand just followed their usual formula. Throughout the show, they just used the same general visual language, style, and sensibility that had once like brought the brand to their knees. Granted, with diversity this time, but in this day and age, how could they not? Because the Victoria's Secret fashion show definitely had the guise of being body positive, being positive for women. There were only women performers this year. And on the pink carpet prior to the show, the Victoria's Secret host kept repeating how this was a celebration of women and women's bodies, how Victoria's Secret has changed.
Who inspires you?
Growing up, I would watch this show and build my confidence by watching the models. So I think they have been, a big inspiration to me.
Oh my gosh, it's a full circle moment for you.
But is Victoria's Secret actually body positive and a celebration of women's bodies? And I don't know, I feel like they picked a couple of models who aren't the traditional model size and then called it a day and claimed to be body positive. Because look, growing up when I watched the Victoria's Secret fashion show, I loved it. However, I did find myself feeling a lot more body conscious and like insecure for the following weeks or months, and would be like, oh, why don't I look like that? Like, why can't I look like a Victoria's Secret model? And I'm like embarrassed to admit that at my big age now of 25, when I watched the Victoria's Secret fashion show this previous week, I did have some of those similar thoughts, and I hate that I did, but I did leave the show being like, oh my god, I really need to go to the gym. I was like, babe, what are you doing? You are acting like your 14-year-old self that's being like so insecure. And don't get me wrong, this is not a diss at all to the models. They are absolutely stunning. It is literally their job to be beautiful. Like, they would take it so seriously. I'm sure they work incredibly hard. All the models were gorgeous. My beef is never with the models. It is instead with Victoria's Secret itself. Because Bella Hadid was my favorite model throughout the entire show, with Candace Swampole, I hope that's how you say her name, as a close second. So I love the models, not a diss to them, but it is a diss to Victoria's Secret, who is a brand that's claiming to be body positive, claiming to have left their toxic past behind, while still perpetuating this stereotype that thin is best. So Tyra Banks closed out the show. I was of course excited for this. She is an iconic woman, a modeling icon. Actually, I was surprised to see though that she was struggling to walk in her heels. I'd love to know if they were the wrong size, if something was wrong with them, or if it was just like the floor in general. But yeah, I was very shocked to see that, so I know something was up because that doesn't seem like Tyra. But who you choose to close out the show with is a big decision. It's your final message and final statement to us, the viewers. And considering this entire show was pretty much to repair Victoria's Secret's image and move on from their previous mistake, one of which being making women all around the globe feel insecure in their skin, was choosing Tyra Banks to close out the show. As when she was on America's Next Top Model, she was constantly ripping into models about their appearance, making them feel bad about themselves, and definitely contributed to the overall body image issue of the early 2000s.
Because I think Next America's Top Model is not a plus size model. I'm sorry.
I just wish her upper body was bigger and matched her lower body better.
Robin, first of all, is too old to be starting model.
She's huge. She's not going to be a top model.
She won't. That's the reality.
She should work for a car toppling company.
If you're sporting a gut, then you turn to the side and disguise it. In the real world, you're a thin girl. But the fashion industry is so extreme, and I would love to change the rules, but until that happens, I think it's all about choices, Kenya. You can get a burger and take the bread off.
And again, it's not a diss to Tyra. I'm sure that she has grown and changed, but I think that when Victoria's Secret is there being like, look at us, we are so body positive, and then they end the show with Tyra Banks, who is literally known for being nasty to people about their bodies, it's a bit of an issue. And I understand Tyra may have changed, but that doesn't mean that the effects of her words don't still linger in people's minds. I also think it's important to mention the incredible fatphobia that was occurring from so many people that were watching the show and posting about it online. That just continues to perpetuate this narrative that skinny is best. The model Ashley Graham received incredible backlash for walking on the runway, with many people saying that she should not be walking due to her size. These people are incredibly fatphobic. I don't care what they say, they've always got a million justifications and reasons. Point blank, fatphobic. And if you're one of the people that was making this comment, just know that Ashley Graham herself, unlikely to see your comment. You know who is going to see your comment though? Your friends and family who are on the curvier side. They will read your comments and they will be hurt by them. Not Ashley Graham, not this supermodel who is doing perfect and has so many resources for her mental health. It will instead be your curvier friends and family. Anyway, moving on. The entire Victoria's Secret fashion show lacked innovation. When deciding to bring back the fashion show, Victoria's Secret had to decide if they were going to be incredibly innovative, leaving their trouble behind and pushing new fashion or lingerie boundaries, or if they were going to rely on nostalgia. Nostalgia sells incredibly well and is not to be looked past. We are constantly seeing old TV shows and movies rebooted. Podcasts are launching about TV shows that aired 10, 15 years ago and are doing well. So it's quite obvious that nostalgia performs well and sells well. But for some reason, Victoria's Secret decided not to go down the innovative path, but then also not to go down the nostalgia path and instead be kind of in the middle, leaving everyone upset. The event overall lacked the innovation it needed to stand out. Don't get me wrong, I did enjoy watching the show. It was so exciting to see Gigi Hadid burst out from the ground, open the show with those gorgeous pink wings, and I loved seeing the OG models return. But Victoria's Secret really had a chance here to lead with some fresh, bold, disruptive ideas, really push the fashion and lingerie boundaries, and honestly gain back their audience's respect and what matters to them, sales. Instead, they just follow their traditional formula with more diverse models, which we love the diversity, of course. But I wish that the show had pushed boundaries and been a little more interesting to watch, you know? And I understand what you may be thinking, why does the show have to be groundbreaking? Because they need sales. Victoria's Secret sales have been declining for the past 6 years. They need to be groundbreaking to make new sales and make up for their losses. Especially because there was an expectation that this show was going to be different. The culture isn't the same anymore, so it was kind of presumed that the Victoria's Secret show wouldn't be either. But as I said, if they didn't want to go the groundbreaking route, they also could have gone the nostalgia route instead of going in this weird in-between place where no one is happy. Because Victoria's Secret was definitely relying on an element of nostalgia for this show. On the pink carpet prior to the show, the Victoria's Secret interviewers kept asking everyone if they watched the show growing up, what their favorite memory of the show was growing up.
And I'm sure you're familiar with Victoria's Secret fashion show. Do you have any memories of watching this in the past?
Not really.
You know, it's a legendary show to come back to. It's 6 years. How does it feel to know that this is the iconic first live stream pink carpet? We're seeing Tyra, we're seeing Gigi.
No, Sharon and I walked in at the same time and I'm like, oh, I am next to an icon. It's just so exciting.
And Victoria's Secret spent a lot of money on getting their OG angels to return, such as Adriana Lima, Tyra Banks, and Candice Swampole, some of which have not walked the runway in over 20 years. So they did have an element of nostalgia there, which is perfect and I think could have worked. But since they were in this weird in-between stage, they had these gorgeous, iconic Victoria's Secret angels back on the show, Candice Swampole and Adriana Lima, and instead of giving them their classic Victoria's Secret bombshell blowout, they had them in slick back ponies, which the nostalgic audience did not like. There were actually no iconic Victoria's Secret blowouts in this entire show, which the nostalgic viewers found very disappointing. And the wings were also disappointing from a nostalgia standpoint. As Victoria's Secret, I think, tried to be innovative with these wings, but they just failed miserably, especially with Candice Swampole's wings. I feel really bad for the girl. Imagine being Victoria's Secret royalty and they make you wear those. I'd be disappointed. The wings just weren't innovative or fabulous enough to have been changed. They needed to be show-stopping or nostalgic, not this weird in-between area. And speaking of the Victoria's Secret Angels wings, the half French, half Japanese model Mika Schneider went viral for her runway walk, as she was the only model in her segment without wings, and during her walk she looked incredibly annoyed and mad about it. Now look, I get being annoyed that you don't have wings. I don't know, this is just my opinion, but I kind of think that it's a bit unprofessional to show how mad you are. I don't know, a million women would have killed for that position, and then she is potentially coming across as a little ungrateful because she doesn't have the wing. I just think sometimes celebs forget how good they have it in life, you know? But it was Mika's reaction on the runway that realized a long-standing Victoria's Secret tradition had been completely foregone in this show. As in previous Victoria's Secret fashion shows, the angel wings had to be earned. New models never wore Victoria's Secret angel wings. Only the models that had done the hard yard for the Victoria's Secret fashion show, and the models who were deemed to have made it would get the wings. But this year that wasn't the case at all, as the performers had angel wings, which has never been done before, and newcomers like Leela Moss was given wings. And now the tradition is gone, which again, Victoria's Secret was relying on an element of nostalgia here, but keeps doing things that annoy the viewers that are watching for nostalgia. And speaking of Leela Moss, it was rumored that the reason that Mika was annoyed and did her annoyed walk on the runway was because Leela was given angel wings. Who knows if this is true? I would personally be kind of annoyed if I had been working Victoria's Secret for years and the new Nepo baby got the wings. I do, however, think that Leela Moss raises a very valid question. Is nepotism destroying the modeling industry? Because in case you didn't know, Leela Moss is actually Kate Moss's daughter. And Kate Moss also walked the Victoria's Secret runway this year, and it's kind of rumored, again we don't know, but it's rumored that Kate Moss only accepted to do the runway if her daughter Leela could walk as well. Now is this true? We don't know. But Leela Moss's walk was not to Victoria's Secret fashion show standards at all. And this isn't me being mean, she's a gorgeous girl, and I think she'd be great in the fashion show in a couple of years when she's had a bit more practice. But the walk that she did in the runway was not good enough, especially when you consider the thousands of hard-working trained models that had been passed on so that a Nepo baby could take the role and deliver a subpar walk. It is, of course, disappointing. But nepotism is rampant throughout the modeling industry. We recently saw Nicole Kidman's 16-year-old daughter open for Miu Miu. She had no modeling experience and opened for Miu Miu. Again, not annoyed at the child. It is not her fault. I actually feel for her. She's getting so much hate on the internet, and this poor girl probably thought she was doing great. Like, she'd been given the position, why not? But I do think it's really disappointing when time and time again we are seeing subpar walks from Nepo babies, as they are taking the spot from hardworking models. Another major criticism that the show received was, where was the budget? Like, that was the top thing I kept seeing on TikTok was, excuse me, where was the budget in this show? Because in previous years, the fashion show had been jaw-dropping. Don't get me wrong, this is again not about the models themselves. They were all stunning, but their costumes weren't as fabulous as they once were. The set design, the stage design, it was all lacking. And while it's true that Victoria's Secret doesn't have as much money as it once did, it's now actually worth a sixth of what it was back in 2018. This is not why it looked like there was no budget in the show, because they actually partnered for the first time with Amazon so that they could have a big budget and money not be as much of an issue for them. So the problem with the disappointing set and stage design and the costumes was not to do with a lack of money, but instead with how the money was used. A large portion of their budget was spent on getting the OG models to return. Models like Tyra Banks and Kate Moss, who have not walked in years, do not come cheap. And instead of Victoria's Secret focusing on finding new, upcoming models intertwined with some of their OGs, they spent their budget on having lots of OG models, which led to the disappointing set design. I mean, the stage was awful, you guys. It was so bad that the model Doots and Crows, I hope that's how you say her name, her high heel literally got stuck and ripped up some of the stage. When do you ever hear that happening, let alone at the Victoria's Secret fashion show? Which again, not the model's fault, it was the stage's fault. We also saw Gigi Hadid struggling with her wings, which we've never seen before. And some of the wings that these models were wearing, I would even consider cheap and tacky looking. Which again, this is the Victoria's Secret fashion show, you're expecting the best of the best, so it was just incredibly disappointing. In fact, I found the entire Victoria's Secret fashion show to be incredibly disappointing. Don't get me wrong, I did enjoy watching it, enjoying like Cher's performance and then seeing Bella Hadid enter the room. Oh my god, that was incredible, amazing, fantastic, and I definitely love seeing more diverse and inclusive models. However, I don't know that Victoria's Secret has a place in the 2024 climate. I think that the Victoria's Secret era may be well over. I'm gonna call it there today, you guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you like my channel, be sure to subscribe because I upload new videos every single week. I haven't been lately, I'm sorry, I've been depressed, but I'm back now, so we're back to one video every single week. If I'm not posting on here, I'm posting on either TikTok, Instagram, or Snapchat. I'll have them all linked down below as well. I'll also link all of my resources down below. I found the podcast The Run Through with Vogue to be incredibly helpful for this video, so I definitely recommend checking them out if you want to hear even more. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in my next video. Bye. Mwah.